My name is Shay Cassidy, and my research question is, what is ocean pollution and how does it affect our environment? To begin dealing with the problem of too much pollution in our oceans, we must first understand what pollution is and how it comes about. Recently, more and more pollution has been clogging up our largest bodies of water here on the planet Earth due to an increase in human activity. Ocean pollution, which can also be referred to as marine pollution, can be summarized as the spreading and contamination of harmful substances such as oil, plastic, industrial and agricultural waste, and chemical particles into the ocean. This dumping of waste into the water can be especially harmful to the marine life in the Earth's oceans. The oceans prove to be homes to an extremely wide variety of marine species, plant and animal, a majority of which we haven't even discovered yet. They and Comoros confirm that most of the human debris that washes up on our beaches is plastic. An estimated 46,000 pieces of plastic is found per kilometer in the world's oceans, and a total of 5.25 trillion particles weighing in at 268,940 tons. Plastic is a very flexible material, able to bend and shape into many different forms. It is strong, resistant, and a relatively inexpensive material. It is said by researcher Claire Little that as plastic is versatile, lightweight, flexible, moisture-resistant, strong, and relatively inexpensive, these are the sort of qualities that lead us to buying an insatiable amount of plastic goods. Those are the attractive qualities that lead us to such a voracious appetite and overconsumption of plastic goods. However, it takes an extremely long time for plastic to erode and wear away, as durable materials that are very slow to wear away are used in the manufacturing of said plastic materials. Our tremendous attraction to plastic, coupled with an undeniable behavioral propensity of increasingly overconsuming, discarding, littering, and thus polluting, has become a combination of lethal nature. With improper use of natural resources, severe environmental degradation has increased in a very small time frame, the degradation now reaching levels where the health and well-being of the coastal populations are threatened. There are many different causes of pollution that can be mostly traced back to human activity. According to Rinkesh, sewage or polluting substances can enter the ocean directly by flowing through rivers or drainages that lead straight into the ocean. The release of industrial and agricultural waste into the oceans affects the marine life, raising the temperature to unnaturally high levels so that the animals eventually perish. This form of pollution is known as thermal pollution. Large oil spills are also a well-known source of most of the ocean's pollution. Bob Bowley shares how ocean pollution affects specific species of marine mammals, such as beluga whales and killer whales. These massive, somewhat invincible-seeming animals are actually home to the title of most toxic mammal. Their bodies are so saturated with agricultural runoff delivered chemicals that their carcasses must be handled like toxic waste. According to Torben Lone, plastics have the ability to kill many different kinds of marine life, such as fish, birds, marine mammals, and sea turtles. It can destroy habitats and can even negatively affect animals' mating rituals. These implications can be deadly enough to even wipe out an entire population. Not only does the plastic that is infecting the waters affect the animals that live there, but also have detrimental effects on humans. According to a CNN article written by Mayra Cuevas, toxic blooms can affect the gastrointestinal system, liver, nervous system, and skin, according to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Some steps are being taken in order to prevent such catastrophic events that are plaguing our oceans and the marine life inhabiting them. Daniel Connor states that the Congress is at work constructing a consensus to reduce plastics and appropriating money. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has taken to exploring beach cleanups and the various ways to live green. Some examples of this are eating as organically as possible and as often as possible, as well as carpooling, not littering, recycling and reducing, and properly disposing of motor oils. Reducing your use of fertilizer and avoiding the use of chemical pesticides in your yard can also make a huge difference. A very simple way that humans can make an impact is to just pick up any trash you see, even if it is not yours. Annette McDermott states that changes can be made on global and even individual scales to try and make a big impact towards preserving the oceans and saving its marine inhabitants. The Environmental Protection Agency has implemented several laws in order to help protect beaches, reduce the dumping of pollution from ships, and reduce marine debris. Moving on to my methods section of the paper. The current research question, what is ocean pollution and how does it affect our environment, contains both qualitative and quantitative data. The experiments being conducted appealed mostly to the qualitative data aspect of the project. The numerical data was derived from the experiment was what will be considered for the quantitative data. For the research method, which was quasi-experimental, examining cause and effect relationships was going to be a major factor. The starting hypothesis regarding the experiment's results was that there will be an overwhelming amount of plastic pollutants and other kinds of garbage that mainly affect fish and other marine life living in an aquatic environment. In such experimental design of research, many factors and variables were considered in the experiment. Involved in the planned experiment, the various controls included the locations that were used for gathering samples. The experiments were conducted in sites that were local to the experimenter, such as along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico at beaches such as Clearwater, St. Pete, and Treasure Island. The dependent variables involved in the experiment are the kinds of pollution that were collected and the different species of animals that inhabit each area and are being affected by the pollution. The experiment stood as mostly qualitative studies. At each location that information was gathered from, the setting was observed to see if there's any visual pollution present and if the location was in good shape or not. With measurement, the amount of pollution was calculated. The quantitative data that was collected was to be contained to a 50 square foot section of each beach selected for research. The 50 square foot area was chosen based on the surrounding environment. For example, if a hotel was located close by, then that was being considered in the deliberation of the site. With each collection of pollution at each site, the pollution was weighed in ounces to see how heavy it was. This includes the weighing of pollution that is wet or dry in a cumulative unit. This is to see if the weight of the pollution collected was enough to harm the stomach of the animal that it sits inside of. The experiment was to be made up of what kinds of pollution collected and what species of marine life was mostly being affected by it. Another research method that pertains to the experiment is ex post facto research. Ex post facto research is a method that explores the pre-existing conditions of a situation and explores the variables and characteristics after the event. Looking at this particular research method and how it was applicable to the research, the past conditions that were being studied was the pre-existing pollution or circumstances, the data that exists focus on it, and how the situation's conditions stand as. Also being observed were the ways that the pollution was entering the environment and any introductory data that might have been collected by another researcher prior to the experiment. With the data that the experimenter was collecting, a positive conclusion is in the hopes of the future of mankind and the health of the environment. Finding solutions was also to be of great importance. The research methods that were chosen for the project, quasi-experimental and ex post facto research, will accurately explore how pollution affects the environment through hands-on experiments dealing with the qualitative data, independent and dependent variables. Through my findings, my hypothesis was the amount of pollution I find at each location will be a substantial amount because of the population of people who visit the beach, with locations including Clearwater Beach, Treasure Island Beach, and St. Pete Beach. My experiment directions were to take a sample picture of the location showing pollution on the shore and maybe in the water, and to record findings of how much pollution was found in a 50 square foot section of the beach. I chose to use a 50 square foot area so I can determine how much trash a beach can generate in one small area rather than examining the whole beach. I weighed the trash in a cumulative weight, not separating the trash that is wet or dry, and instead weighed it all as one unit. I found that in the 50 square foot area of Clearwater Beach, 23 ounces was found. In Treasure Island Beach, in the 50 square foot area, 12 ounces of trash was found. And in St. Pete Beach, in the 50 square foot area measured, was 7 ounces. Overall, the amount of trash I recorded at each site, which measured only 50 square foot per experiment, was enough to be harmful to aquatic life in the environment. The trash generated by humans raised some concern as the amount of pollution per 50 square area foot was worrying. The kinds of pollution that I noticed the most were mostly styrofoam cups, cigarette butts, and aluminum cans. In the future, I hope to raise awareness of pollution on marine environments and to raise awareness to these, and so people can become more aware of what pollution is doing to our environment. Thank you.